Alright everybody, we are at part 6 of our Best of Next Fest 2023 coverage. Only one more video left after this, so get ready to enjoy another video of some of my favorite games from the festival. We are starting things off with Cross Blitz. This is a deck building RPG. I guess the simplest way we could describe this would be take similar rules and mechanics of, say, a Hearthstone and turn it into a single-player driven adventure game. There is, I believe, multiplayer as an optional mode, but what we got from the demo is the story campaign. The general basics of this one is that you'll build your deck of up to 30 cards from various styles, minion cards, spell cards, and more. During the general play, you can put characters in either the front or back rows. This will affect what kind of attacks can actually go off. You'll also find cards that can proc or activate off of other cards, such as cannons that will shoot anytime you play a pirate card. There is also pyro spirits that enhance your pyro damage, and you can start to see how things go. There is advanced system with special blitz cards. These are kind of like deck-defining super moves. Each one has a conditional to activate, and once you get it, you can then use it on any turn that you want, and this can be, of course, your big game-winning, or if you mess up, game-failing move. Beyond that, the game does feature several other aspects. You can buy relics. You can equip them to your character. You can see those kinds of 4 slots above Powder Ape in the upper right. Relics do all kinds of things in this game, from letting your cards attack on the immediate turn. You can boost stats, you can give your character thorns. There is a lot going on here, and just like with a game like Hearthstone or any other deck builder, you're going to have to maximize all your cards, all your relics, and so on if you want to have any chance of getting through this. The early play of the game seems simple enough, but it gets very nasty if you're not paying attention. The boss fight of this demo can be a real toughie if you haven't prepared your deck. And the Hearthstone comparison also comes through in another way. This game definitely feels like your starter options are just woefully behind. This is one of those games where there's a huge difference in terms of quality of 1 or 2 cost mana cards, and you're going to figure out very quickly that your first 30 cards are not going to do it. You are going to need to craft new cards, use your money to buy new relics, and in some cases this can make your deck game breaking. In other cases it will just get you to par in some of these fights. And that can be a little frustrating in time, that you're going to lose and there was not anything you could have done to prevent it just because of RNG, or that the enemy just really took your deck and ran away, essentially, in terms of its strategy. But with that said, this is going to be a very solid deck builder. Again, this is a adventure style RPG. This is not a roguelike, at least from the main story. But if you're looking for a kind of Hearthstone-like that looks like there will be a lot of depth to it, then definitely check this one out. We now turn to Skator Gator 3D. I'm surprised no one else came up with the idea to use this as a name for a game until now. This is a 3D platformer where you play as, well, our Skator Gator here, who when his new skateboard decides to steal the deed to his land, he goes on a 3D platforming adventure to get it back. The mechanics here involve a lot of rail grinding, which occupies as kind of like an auto-scroller or auto-runner style affair. When you're off your board, you are free to run, jump, do this kind of dash around move, and collect all matter of junk, as well as the letters to Gator that you see in the upper right. The general movement is okay. You do kind of lose control a little bit when it comes to some of the dashing that you do. The main thing that does kind of hurt this game, at least for me, is that I'm not a fan of kind of the grinding auto runner style areas, as it can feel a little bit out of control. If you're used to auto runners, then it shouldn't be that big of a deal, but the rest of the game looks like it's going to be aimed kind of like as like a casual to moderate affair. So if you are a fan of 3D platformers and looking for one to sink your teeth into, or I guess I should say grind some rails to, then definitely check this one out. We now have Memori. This is a 2D platformer that, well, kind of feels very much like a Celeste-like. You are exploring a strange dream world. There are lots and lots of spikes, as you can see all over the place, and you will have to run, jump, and air dash your way around to figure out what is going on. The general movement of this game feels very well done. The difficulty, I would say, is a little bit below Celeste, at least from what we play in the demo. I do not know how much more advanced it's going to get beyond that. But the general gist of this one is that there are multiple secrets to find, and you'll do a whole lot of platforming. If I had any real issue with the platforming physics or the tech, it's that when you see the character kind of leave one of the portals, there's a very split-second moment that if you don't hit any command, the game will kind of drop your input. So you have to kind of like mash whatever button you want to hit as you're leaving the portal to properly make it go. But I was enjoying this one. If you've played any of the Celeste style games, or you have played and finished Celeste, then this one should be right up your alley. If you haven't played Celeste, I feel like this could be a really great like kind of like training wheel style game to get you in the mood for that style of platforming. But I'm definitely looking forward to seeing what else Memori has up its sleeves. We now turn to Go Fight Fantastic. This is a beat 'em up slash kind of like RPG style game, where you and your motley crew of, I guess, space couriers get into trouble and must now save the day from evil. Each character belongs to a specific class, and they will each have a normal, heavy, special move, as well as a specific role. Now here's the important thing, I want to make this very clear about this game. It is clearly designed around multiplayer. You can play this single player like I'm doing right here, and I can swap between the 3 characters at will. But the closest comparison I could give to this game would be something like Full Metal Furies, that while you can play a single player, it feels very much designed and balanced around at least having one other person, ideally 3. The reason why is that the roles of each character are very specific. The character you see like it with like the reddish or like pink background hue, they are the healer, and they are the only one who can place down healing items that you can then let the other 2 characters pick up and use. There's actually a 4th character who's a tank, but you can only have 3 in the field at the time. There are upgrades in the form of these kinds of like crystals that you can pick up that can modify characters. There are passive ones that just give you more attack, more charge, that kind of thing. And then there are some that are specific for each character. Now, where it can get a little bit frustrating is that there are enemies with shields, and the shield works, so you must do a specific number of damage to it within a time frame in order to break it to then do damage to the enemy. If you're playing the single player, that will rely on you swapping between the characters, kind of using all their ultimate skills, and it does feel a little weird. I do not know if Go Fight Fantastic is going to be balanced or scaled based on the number of players that are currently in the game. But I was enjoying this one. It is going to be on the challenging side. Enemies do not get hit stun or stun lock, so you have to use your dodge, and the dodge is based on a cooldown, hence why the healer is so important in this game. If you have a friend who likes beat-em-ups, ideally 2 friends, then this is a fantastic looking game to play and check out. If you want to play this predominantly solo, I don't know if it's going to work for you. And one last point, the game will have full online play in the finished version, The demo is only for remote or remote play / couch co-op. So with that said, go fight Fantastic. Looks like it could be another winner for you and your friends for some multiplayer fun. We now have Marko Beyond Brave. This is a Metroidvania kind of built around the Slavic mythology and characters. When a giant monster threatens the land, Marko is the only one left standing with his very lustrous mustache in order to save the day. The game itself plays like your very much traditional Metroidvania, especially if you've checked out Hollow Knight, as you have the kind of pogo / down attack that you will make great use of. The store page boasts that there is a lot of like Metroidvania upgrades and non-linear areas to explore, that kind of thing. The problem from the demo is that I really didn't get a chance to see that. I tried to go off the beaten path several times, and all I found was just money or just dead ends. So I'm not quite sure how far the game's going to go with Metroidvania style gameplay. The general play of this one felt alright, and it's kind of what gets it on the list right here. If I can see more of the Metroidvania side, this could be another great take on the formula. For right now, if you're in a Hollow Knight withdrawal, waiting for Silksong to come out, then I would at least give this demo a check and see if it can scratch that itch for you, at least for the short while. We now turn to Viewfinder, that may be one of my absolute favorites of the show. This is a puzzle adventure game where the concept here is that we are exploring a world where any kind of photo, painting, anything visual can be superimposed and manifest within the world itself. It is as trippy as it is awesome to behold. And your mission is to use these various photos and so on in order to solve various puzzles and move around the environment. Sometimes just getting to the exit, trying to create batteries or getting to them to activate a teleporter, and other things. And the visual design in this one is fantastic. There's this kind of like, I guess it's like a award-winning B-roll section in this demo that just looks absolutely incredible to behold. And this is even before the game introduces the actual viewfinder of the title. Once you get the viewfinder, you are now able to take photos of anything in the space and then use that to again superimpose into the environment. It's one of those things that it sounds completely out there when you first look at it, but then it just makes perfect sense within the confines of the game itself. This is definitely a title to keep an eye out on, and I am fairly sure that it is going to be on a lot of people's Game of the Year winning lists when it is eventually released. And now for something a little bit different with the Backworld. This is based off of the whole SCP backroom kind of thing that's going on, but put into a JRPG style form, or probably something more akin to that of Earthbound. When you keep ending up in a strange dimension with weird things trying to get you, you're going to have to try and figure out what is going on and survive. The gameplay of this one is quite interesting, again mixing kind of like the JRPG design of an Earthbound style game, but with some very tricky elements of equipment and item management. This is going to be one of those titles where you'll need to pay very close attention to the enemies that you're fighting, and wear gear and use weapons accordingly to completely mash them. Now, the demo has a decent look to it, however, we really didn't get a chance to kind of like see, I guess, like the full extent or what's going to make this game really stand out mechanic wise from it. It just kind of like ended on its own. But I do like the kind of mix of like creepy horror with turn-based combat that the game is going for. So if you're not tired yet of exploring the back rooms and looking for some turn-based combat along the way, then I would at least recommend you check out the Backworld. We now have Surmount. This is a roguelike mountain climbing game. You are trying to climb the largest mountain in the world, and everything from animals to Mother Nature to the mountain itself is going to try and get in your way. Each time you play, the mountain itself is procedurally generated. In order to survive, you will need to do your best swinging around while managing your grip meter. Now, the kind of like spinning and the physics around feels a little bit weird. I'm not sure if it was just me or my controller acting things up there. But as the game goes on, there are kind of collectibles you can pick up or currency that you can use to acquire new perks. Now, I don't know if the perks are permanently unlocked or they're only there for the next run or anything like that. But this game is looking like it will be a very interesting kind of like middle ground of the challenge of, say, a Getting Over It or those games, with that of the mountain climbing and roguelike design. So if you do like climbing and you enjoy a few roguelikes here and there, then I would suggest checking out or climbing up into Surmount. We now have Freenergy. This is a kind of, I guess, like tactical RPG or just RPG combat game. Normally in these games, we are the hero battling against giant robots to try and save the day. This time we are the giant robot. And the game feels like a mix between a turn-based RPG and the kind of mech customization of, say, an Armored Core. Each part of your mech can have different parts built into it. The parts themselves will do certain amount of damage based on the enemy's positioning. Your energy is kind of stored between, or you share your energy between all your different parts. Each part will have different skills associated to it with the ability to interrupt enemies, heal, and so on. And your mission is to battle against smaller robots and of course other giant mechs in order to come out on top. After the battles, you'll be able to upgrade as well as construct new parts, and there's something a lot of here for a turn-based strategy or turn-based RPG fan. With that said, the game definitely lacks right now in terms of the UI. Lots of small icons, lots of similar looking icons, and it can be a little hard to tell what something does at a glance. But if the GUI can be improved, this could be a very interesting RPG for fans looking for, I guess, their first time building a unit that can actually do a whole lot of stuff on the battlefield. We went from very big to something a lot smaller in scale with Probo Rush. This is a, well, Contra-like meets boss rush game. You will have to fight against lots and lots of varieties of good old run and gun style bosses, using your multiple weapons and your own shoot 'em skills in order to make it through. The game, from what I play of it, feels really good to control. Again, it has all the staples of it, but keep in mind that this is a very small game compared to some of the other run and guns. Does not appear to be any levels, anything else like bonus around. This is just boss rushes after boss rush. So if you are a fan of Contra and looking for just a lot of bosses to beat up, then I would definitely check this one out. Crop rotation is a kind of roguelike in a similar vein of that of Luck Be a Landlord, but we are replacing slot machines and gambling with farming. Our mission is to use an auto farmer in order to grow crops to pay our weekly rent. Now, the game does feature some very interesting aspects to it that separate it from Landlord. Every day you'll be able to choose from a different crop that you can then add to your little inventory of things you can grow. Everything you can grow has a different rarity rating and will belong to 2 different categories, such as vegetable and root, sweet, bitter, and so on. If you have 3 or more individual or unique growables or crops of a specific type, that will earn you a set bonus. There are animals and tools you can also acquire that can provide unique bonuses and synergies as well. And your challenge is going to be figuring out, based on what you're getting from RNG, what will be your strategy for this run. Because as each kind of payment goes forward, you'll have to pay more for each subsequent week. And the basic crops will not be enough for this. And you will need to figure out how you're supposed to get to the win here. You can also upgrade anything that you pick up to give it more of an impact, and more importantly, save you a slot. Because there is a limit on the number of things you can hold in your inventory, as well as the number of things you can put into your actual kind of farming system. So this one I enjoyed. It can be a little tricky to learn. The UI is very well done. It does a great job of highlighting where there are potential synergies, things that you can do, things along those lines. So if you enjoyed Luck Be a Landlord, or looking for a roguelike that is really about, well, playing or farming by the seat of your pants, then definitely check out Crop Rotation. For the last game of today's episode, this is Sword Hero. This is an action roguelike where we must save the day by, well, swinging a sword and running around and getting into lots and lots of fighting. So what makes this game kind of interesting is that there's a number of upgrades and progression systems on top of a fairly robust combat. With the combat itself, you can see me swinging my sword around. You can also charge it to do kind of focus damage, dash, as well as do a ground stomp in the air and parry. You are always going to be outnumbered by the enemies, and you will need to quickly get into the swing of things if you want to survive. Enemies will drop resources that you can use to buy new things. You can also find randomly generated and randomly dropped gear that you can equip to your character, or sell back at your home base / persistent area to get more unlocks. The challenge of this one is definitely going to be how much you can deal with these enemies, because you are going to be attacked from all sides. The screen shaking can be a little annoying in a few spots. But all in all, this is looking like a fairly sizable action roguelike. The store page boasts like a very lengthy Path of Exile level of upgrades and stuff like that unfortunately I didn't get a chance to see from the demo. But the general feel of this one is well done, and I'm curious where they're going to go with enemy designs and kind of enemy logic in terms of how they'll fight. The strongest thing I had to fight was this kind of wooden mech that was shooting rockets at me from across the map. So there's definitely going to be some variety here. If you are a fan of action roguelikes and looking for another one, then I would definitely recommend checking out Sword Hero. For the last game of our showcase, this is Knights of the Road. This is a 2D action platformer, where we play as a brigand here with a magic shield thanks to his fairy friend. And he is going to get into a whole lot of adventures which will inadvertently probably lead to him saving the kingdom from evil. This is played, while it's not exactly, at least from the demo, play as a stage-by-stage format, it is built around you exploring linear areas. Your main ability is that your shield can be thrown as a boomerang, you can bounce off enemies, and you also have kind of a pogo bounce you can use to land on spikes and hazards. Levels are filled with secrets including hidden food and money, and you will need money because in order to save your game, you need to go to various wizards and pay a fee. Now, from what I spend, or what time I spent playing the demo, I believe once you save at one of the checkpoints, it is permanently locked, although I can't 100% confirm that. The game could definitely use some work with the onboarding, as it assumes you've played the likes of DuckTales, Shovel Knight, and so on. So it doesn't really explain, at least at the start, some of the important aspects of how you use your slide and so on. But the gameplay itself feels good to play. The jumping is on point. I don't know how much there's going to be in terms of exploration, bonus things to do, etc, etc. But if you are a fan of mono-retro platforming, then this is definitely one I would suggest you at least take a look at and see if you will enjoy it. So with that said, we're going to wrap up this showcase here. We are still nowhere close to being done. There's still plenty more demos to check out. You'll find links to everything down below. Be sure to do all that YouTubing stuff people tell you to do. Let me tell you what you're looking for a future piece. Please reach out. Visit our Discord and Patreon, and also be sure to visit where my books are sold if you're interested in more of my thoughts on design. We'll be back tomorrow for another video from the games of NextFest, and come back for daily discussions on game design here and on game wisdom, where you examine the art and science of games.